The indefinite pronouns are the pronouns like anyone, somebody, few, all. These are called indefinite pronouns because they're not definite. We're not talking about any definite person. Like he, we know has to be one particular person that we're thinking of, but anyone, hey, could be anyone. So we call them indefinite pronouns. So the rules, definitions, well, it's not specific, exact, or definite. Okay, that's part of the definition. It is used when the noun is unknown, like somebody, anybody. Okay, it's unknown. Antecedent is not necessary. Okay, antecedent is not necessary means that we don't have to, that particular pronoun doesn't have to refer back to anything. Anyone is just anyone by itself. But they become the antecedent for other pronouns. And we saw this earlier when we were talking about the you, pronoun you. When you're talking about the general you, just anybody, we start the sentence with one. One is blah, 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 and then he is blah, blah. And this he would refer back to this one, and that one is your indefinite pronoun. That is the antecedent of the he that follows later. So the issue that we get into when we're talking about indefinite pronouns is whether that pronoun should be considered singular, plural, or both. Okay? And so some of these are always singular, like the word someone. Someone is always singular, so that means the verb has to be singular as well. Someone is. And then if you use a pronoun to refer back to that person, it has to be singular as well. You can use he or she in this case because we don't know this person. We don't know whether it's he or she. So we want to use he or her. And when you're speaking, it's perfectly fine for you to say they, okay, because we don't want to talk about the gender, which we don't know. All right. Some pronouns are always plural, like few. Few, both are, these words are countable things that we're talking about, and few always means there are several of countable things out there. So we have to say few are eating their lunches in the plural. And some words can be both singular or plural, like all. Can be singular sometimes, and it can be plural sometimes, and it depends on what we're talking about. All of the water is gone. If you're talking about water and you divide it in half or thirds or take a part of it, it's still one body. The whole is one body. It's not countable. So when you have uncountable things, it's going to be considered singular. But if you have countable things like cars, all of the cars, there are multiple cars out there, physical things. So you'll have to use the plural verb are. So what are they? Well, the words that are always singular are here, okay? And you can't just blindly memorize them. So let's look for some similarities. The words with any in them. Anything, anyone, these are always singular. Also the every, everyone, everybody, everything, those are always singular. And then nobody, no one, nothing, these are all singular as well. Ones that is really worth giving an effort to memorizing is that either is always singular and neither is always singular. You want to memorize that, okay? Each is always singular. And the fact that everyone and everybody is singular is worth committing to memory as well, because we tend to forget. Look at the sentence here. Everybody opened his books. Okay, probably has one book, so probably just one book, his book. This is the correct form of the sentence because everybody is singular. Even though we're talking about everybody in a classroom, and that could be 30 people, grammatically the sentence begins with a singular subject, everybody. So we have to use the singular form of the pronoun. When we're talking, we would say everybody opened their books, and this is perfectly fine. It's understandable, no confusion, no worries about gender issues. So that's fine when talking, but not when it comes to writing. How about the plural ones? Both, few, many, others. These are words that are always going to be plural. I think also there are a few others. I think word several could be a pronoun when you're talking about several things, and you could say something like several of them appeared. Um, in that case, the word several is used as a pronoun, and it would be referring to a group of things countable, and that would be indefinite pronoun. That's always plural. So both is always two, and few, many, these are bigger numbers than two, but they're always referring to countable things, so they are always plural. We have both were singing in the room. Well, that's going to be obviously two, and so we're going to say were. Many are watching the show. Many is obviously countable people, so that's going to be always plural. And the next category is that some of these can be both singular and plural depending on the situation. And you have to consider what it is that you're talking about. Most of that house was burned in the fire. So that means you had one house, okay? And most of that house was burned on fire, maybe half of it. Okay, that's burned in the fire. But it's still one part. You can't really count up different parts of the house, right? So we would say most of the house was burned. But if you say most of the houses, we're talking about many houses in the block. There were many houses, and most of them were burned, right? But that's still countable many. So in this case, we would have to say were. Okay, so are we talking about uncountable things or countable things? That's the main difference between them. So the words are words like all, any, more, most, none, some, and such. These are considered words that are both countable or uncountable, or singular or plural, depending on the countability of the nouns you're talking about.